Introducing Jessica McDonald, also known as Jess, an event marketing specialist who brings people together with her get it done mentality. With experience in managing bars, music marketing, and tech startup, Jess took Qualia's event programming from nothing to over 100 sponsored conferences and seminars, hosting their own annual conference of over 500 attendees. She specializes in high-touch ABM event strategies, partnerships, and a steady program pipeline for Qualia's sales team. Tune in to hear Jess's insights on event marketing and her love for Austin, Texas. 1, 2, 3, welcome to Eventus 365, the podcast that's all about corporate events and the magic behind the scenes. I'm your host, Yanique DaCosta, and I am excited to take you on a journey through the world of corporate events. But before we dive in, let's talk about the stress of creating marketing material for your events. We all know how tough it can be when deadlines are tight and resources are limited, but guess what? YKMD Visual Communications has got your back. Our design firm specializes in working with corporate event professionals just like you, and we're here to help take the stress out of creating stunning graphics for your event. Our team of expert designers can deliver custom brand compliant designs in just 12 hours. So whether you need branding, signage, marketing materials, or anything else, YKMD's got you covered. Okay, now that that's done, let's start the show. Okay, Jess, so excited to have you. I see you're sitting outside. I love that for you. I wish I was sitting outside. Thank you for joining me today to chat about all things events. So as a busy professional, how do you find the time to enjoy like your personal life and like outdoor adventures in Austin while juggling a demanding career? I mean, again, even like right now you're outside and I'm envious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do try to like sit outside when I am at home, like at least a little bit each day, because it's nice to break it up and not be like stuck inside all day, no matter what situation you're in. Even if I go into the office, I like to like step out for a walk, like just do like very short, but just a little sunlight, a little fresh air. Never hurt anybody.
Never does. It's actually really good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, like here in Texas, some of these times are a little bit limited. Like today, it's going to get up to 95. So I probably won't be sitting out here in a little bit later in the afternoon, but that's okay. But basically, I guess like the biggest ways I try to balance it is, a big part of it is where you work. I think that's a really important piece, making sure that the place that you work really values sort of your personal life and your time. Definitely something that they do at Qualia, and my managers have kids. I have a toddler, so it's like, understanding that we do have these kind of demands, and when you're looking for work in this field, just making sure and having those conversations with the people you're going to work for of like, I got to take my kid every day to school at 8:30 in the morning. I can't be necessarily jumping on a call at that time, and having them understand that fully.
Which is not easy in like a demanding industry at all.
No, it's not. And you also have to know how to prioritize your own time, right? Like you have to be able to say like, okay, personal life, like I'm going away for an event for a week and I won't be here, and set everything up before you go. But it's also the flip side. Your boss has to know, hey, she's having to set up so much in her personal life to be able to make this happen, and having that like truly deep understanding of like what you're going through. I think like that's super important. And then also like letting go of the guilt, like, right? Like, okay, like,
yeah, you can't be there for everything.
Right, exactly. Like sometimes I have to say no, or sometimes I have to prioritize running to the grocery store in the middle of the day, because I've been away for a week, right? But letting go of that guilt of like, I'm not sitting in front of my computer every second of every day, and like also, getting that trust from your manager that they know that you're managing it in the best way. The other big piece for me is like scheduled timeouts, right? Like I like made this arrangement, but like every other Wednesday, that's like my scheduled timeout, right? Because I wouldn't do it otherwise. Like I would get too busy or too caught up in like what's important. But this is important, like having time for yourself. And
wait, no, we need you to explain what a scheduled timeout is. I've never heard this and I like it.
Yeah, I kind of made it up, but no, it's every other, for me, it's every other Wednesday. Whether I go into the office or not, but if I'm in the office, when I leave the office, like I don't go home. I go do something that I want to do for myself. Like, I could do it by myself. I could grab a girlfriend to go do something. I could go to a yoga class. The thing of it is, it's my choice, right? Like, and there's someone who's watching my kid, my husband. There's someone with my kid. That's covered. They don't need me for anything. And I, again, letting go of that guilt of like, hey, once every 2 weeks, I get a night to myself. And I've done all those things. I've gone to a nice dinner. I've gone to a yoga class. I've gone for a walk. Like, just some time to like be with yourself, and just have that time. And so what I was running into is that I just wouldn't ever do things for myself. And so why I call it scheduled is because it is scheduled and I do it every other week, no matter what. And sometimes I'm like, man, I really don't want to do this. But every time afterward, I feel so much better because I'm like, wow, I've had a moment to myself. I've been able to sit down and just read a book somewhere or something along those lines, just something peaceful. I think that's kind of the biggest way that I like try to find balance between the super busy schedule. I don't know, it's like scheduling time out for myself. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you have like a really great handle on just like boundaries and like career and staying organized and figuring out like how to find your sanity. Walk us through like the early days of like hospitality industry to becoming like a specialist now in event strategies, and how you kind of got to this place of Zen, which that's just my term for it.
I appreciate it. I wouldn't say it's always Zen, there's always something going on. But yeah, I would say like early on, um, really like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I think I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way or start that way for sure. I like moved home after a bad breakup and I just was like not sure what I was going to do. I think again, something we probably all experienced in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened was from there was basically my friend told me about, hey, the W is opening in Austin and they're having a job fair. Like, and I was like, oh, random. But then I said, you know what, I'll just go out there, see what they have, see what's happening. Like, it was seemed like kind of a big deal. I mean, there wasn't really a hotel like that in Austin at that point. Now, we have a lot of luxury now, but at that time there wasn't really anything like that. I mean, this was 12 more years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aging myself right now. But yeah, and so basically I ended up getting the job like on the spot to be like a cocktail waitress, and not anything I had really done before at that level. And the place was packed. It was amazing. Like it was like such a vibe. It was like the place to be. Like, it was shoulder to shoulder every Tuesday. Through it was every day.
Not a Tuesday. It's crazy.
Right, exactly. Like, and then, like there, I kind of eventually moved up. I started bartending when we opened the pool bar. And so I kind of helped them open that area and definitely like learned a lot. Um, but, and yeah, like speaking of the pool, I was there the day the glass fell. I don't know if that's anything you've ever heard about before, but
the worst.
yeah,
You have to drain the pool, you have to empty the pool, you have to clean the pool, then there's like a waiting period, then you have to refill the pool, and then you have to like actually like process, like put the chemicals in it, and then it's a process.
Totally.
I've actually seen that process happen several times, if you can't tell.
Oh yeah, I can tell. You were like an expert on that. No, and it was really bad because there was people in the pool when the glass fell. And so like, how
and then there's like, the liability. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like, they got all cut up. They were like, it was like an apocalypse a little bit because, when blood and water mix, like it makes it kind of look like a lot more. Well, they were just like walking up and like covered in it. Thankfully, I was like under the awning. It's like of Jaws. The bar. Yes, exactly. It was just like, yes, and it was definitely really scary. And those like 9 people that got hit, that was obviously a horrible situation. And they worked it all out, but the balconies were like cracking and shattering and then falling because of the heat in Texas.
Wow.
Anyway, that was wild.
Let's not talk about architecture today, because that's a whole nother
that's a whole nother problem. But no, it was great. It was a super fun job, amazing job, but it was definitely like burning the candle at both ends. I'd be up there starting at 10 a.m. till sundown, then go out with friends and then do it all over again, over and over and over. So definitely, wasn't really sustainable. I was 21, but that's, eventually not sustainable.
Yeah.
But I made a ton of great relationships there. It was the place to be. So I definitely met some people, and that's when I was able to go work with a friend. She was the GM of this bar, and I ended up moving up to assistant manager. And so just working with her and really just kind of like learning how they did their books and how to manage like a group of like kind of rowdy young people, and really kind of introducing to like partnerships and doing events and how do you engage our clients, like things like that. So really kind of starting to ask those questions, but not necessarily like knowing that level deeper, right?
Mhm.
But
So do you
again,
feel like, well, I don't want to cut you off, so let me let you keep going.
go ahead.
I was gonna
Well,
say,
no,
do you feel like working with your friend at this establishment kind of like shaped your event marketing expertise, or do you feel like it already started from the W?
I do think at the W, it was like definitely was learning an introduction to like what it kind of took to put on events, sort of from that background as working in them, right? Like I was working at them. But I would say, like how did it impact me? I would say I looking back on it now, yes, it definitely did. It was like kind of like kicking off some of these bigger, deeper questions. But looking at like what I know now versus what I knew then, it's like I could have done so much more, right? If I knew now what I knew then, if I knew then what I know now, and how you can just really evaluate things on a deeper level. It wasn't something the company as a whole was really doing. I mean, it was like, kind of a little bit fly by the seat of their pants a lot of the time. There wasn't a ton of strategy behind the stuff that they did. And I think, yeah, like we can jump into it if you want, but I know one of the other things we were going to maybe talk about was, kind of like revitalizing that bar. That they were kind of having an identity crisis when I came on. It was kind of like they were they had all these TVs, but they didn't want to be known as a sports bar, right? Like that it was like
Okay.
this weird,
Okay.
like
Okay.
yeah, they're like, no, we want to be known as a service industry bar that's like cool where people can come to. And I was like, yeah, but like those
Counterproductive.
people
No.
those people only come out like, on a Tuesday from 11 to 1 a.m. So like who else can we get in here, And so I think, really kind of changing that branding and thinking it through and saying, okay, you've invested in all these TVs and all that kind of stuff, like capitalize on that, like buy the sports packages and let's get people in here. Um, while I was there, we ended up partnering with a Houston Texans watch group, which like, I know that doesn't sound like super exciting because you see watch groups everywhere now,
No, no,
but
but like it sounds like you guys really went out of your way to like kind of, instead of running away from the idea of sports, kind of like really diving into it and like finding the riches in the niches that people like to say. And like
yeah,
really honing into, okay, one watch group, there could be another, and then this will become that hangout spot for that thing, because that's how we've chosen to approach the people that we're welcoming into the space and making it conducive for them to enjoy. And it probably also sounds like if you reached out to them, you probably, were open to their feedback on like how to improve their experience.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's so many things we could have like done better, done more of, just looking back. But it's one of those things that they actually approached us. They couldn't find anyone to take them. So this was kind of the thing is they couldn't.
I feel about that at this point.
But like it was a risk on our part. Like in
Yeah.
Austin, everyone's known as like a Dallas Cowboys fan. This is we don't have a team, so most people would lean towards Dallas. They're an older team. They were good when we millennials were kids, things like that. So what really it was kind of a risk, right? Like we didn't know how many people were going to get. And the first game, there was maybe 5 people there, right? Like the word was not out, but every week it got busier and busier and busier. And then once a bar gets busy, it's kind of one of those things where people just know to go there, right? Like they're like, oh, you know what? They're comfortable there. They're like, I know it's going to be busy. I know it's going to be a good time. I
Or
know that the
yeah,
wait.
let's go to this. No, we go to this place on Saturday nights. We don't go there on Sundays. We go on Saturday. And everybody
Right,
has
like
their night. Yeah.
right. So, and there was things that the bar was doing before that. Like we used to do like Tecate Tuesday, right? Where we had like all the staff wore a special outfit and then we had drink specials and it was tequila was flowing. Things like that for sure. But it wasn't like sustainable enough. And so really over time, like once we started doing the watch groups, it just got busier and busier. And really was just one of those things that it just was kind of like a magical time to work there because we were so busy. And we had such a great staff and everybody really cared, you know, and so it was just like one of those like kind of magical moments, which of course they don't last forever. And I was, of course, getting to a point where I was like, I cannot be on my feet this much anymore. Like it is like exhausting to be up till 4 a.m.
That is
like, and so,
that is everybody's favorite part about working in events. Being out of your own bed until the sun is coming up and having swollen feet that require Epsom salt baths. Everybody loves that, I think. No, they don't. Okay. I think this is a really great transitioning point to kind of talk about like what you're doing right now with Qualia's event program. I mean, you talked a lot about the like serving industry, the hospitality industry, and like some of those challenges. Talk to me more about like the challenges and rewards of, you know, growing Qualia's event program from the ground up, and like maybe some of how some of those strategies kind of translated to finding or you having success within that kind of development.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say like the challenges for sure that we ran into, I think we were kind of the new kids on the block. I mean, this is any startup, right? Like, so I think this applies like beyond just ours, right? Like, you're the new kid on the block. You're trying to figure out where you fit in and how to grow that, right? Like, so, you know, I think one thing we ran into a lot was just kind of like that lack of the industry expertise. And so, like, when it comes to like events, right? Like, your audience is the expert, right? Whoever you're trying to get in the room, they're the expert of whatever, you know, thing you're gathering them for. And so I think, you know, really learning the language, right? And like, cause they will call you if you don't know the right words and you don't know every detail, they're going to call you and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Right. That's why like some of the best event people are the people who can just, you know, pull it, and just keep going. Right. So I think, you know, overall, like, yeah, we didn't have a lot of that knowledge. We didn't know we were going to be like called out right when we got there. You know, these people, they had something to say, and we were so small. Like most of us were from more of that like tech or SaaS world, and these people are very much about their industry. But you know, a lot of research, a lot of guesses, a lot of failures, you know, a lot of being called out, and you know, you slowly start to figure that out. And you know, we have like an amazing training program now. So like it's like a month of training before any salesperson like hits the phone to talk to anybody, let alone go to an event. Like kind of have to be a little bit privileged to go to our events, thankfully. My or Qualia definitely like sees the value in having the right person there, which is super important as the planner. You know, you really you have to trust that person, especially if you're not there. If you are there, you know, you can handle a lot, but you know, a lot of times I'm not there. I'm not the one on site, right? So I have to trust that I've trained this person enough to accomplish their goals. And then I would say like the rapid growth, obviously it was a major challenge for sure. Like we in 2017, when we first started selling the product, it was like we went to 7 trade shows, and it was kind of like, okay, just getting our feet wet. By 2019, we went to 125.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was like,
okay. Yeah.
So yeah. So
just
I
kidding.
Like
that was a test run. No, not really. That was a fluke.
And it was just at that point they were like, okay, we saw success from these 7. What if we more than double, triple down? Like
I think that's any good business person, like especially from like a startup perspective. Okay, if this is working, let's double down, let's scale this thing that's working and trying to figure out how to amplify that to like get more dollars in the door. So I completely respect that approach. Actually like making that happen. I can only imagine how insane it must have been, because there is one thing to do. It's one thing to do 7, right? And like to build out that formula, but to make sure that the 100 and something other like representations of the organization actually follows the model that was previously successful, but then also somehow manage to like do some kind of creative pivot in terms of when we're going back in front of the same people to get them re-engaged. Don't you love how I said we as if I'm on the team too? I'm
Yeah.
on the team. I'm on the team. Bring me along. So how do you strike a balance between staying creative and like kind of adhering to the constraints of like a corporate environment when planning and executing events or attending shows?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a big thing I had to learn. Like it was not something that like came really naturally, but like I have to not take it personal, right? Like I am that agent for their brand, right? Like that's how I have to try to look at it is like I am trying to accomplish something for them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not my every idea that they're going to love, right? So I try to think about it like my ideas are like a Rolodex, right? Like let's look through my brain and or my literal notes and see what's things that we've done or what's things I did somewhere else or things I've seen that I liked. And see what fits for what you guys, what your vision is, what your goals are, what are you as the CRO or the VP of sales trying to accomplish by going to this event, and then we can maybe plug in one of these ideas, right? And so, knowing that I have this, I try to like focus on that, right? Because it's not always the most creative thing to go to a trade show. It's not always fun to like try to fit into their theme and be like, okay, it's a football theme. Let's get a signed football from somebody. It's like you kind of have to fall within those kind of constraints. And so, just knowing I have it there and that if I ever need a call for that creative piece, it's in there. And then of course, like if I ever plan my own event, I try to just like put that extra love and creativity into it that I want to do because it's just for me. So yeah, that's kind of
What
how
do
I try to
you
look at it. But
what what happens when um what happens when someone from the C-suite is like, I want you to do X, and then you pull up the brand guidelines or like you pull up the goals for the year and you're like, this doesn't meet those goals. Like, what do you do?
yeah, you kind of have to have the tough conversation a little bit, right? Like, and every project manager, event planner knows this, but if you want to put something else in your already busy schedule, something else is going to have to be sacrificed, right? And so that's kind of typically how I approach it, right? It's like, all right, here are my OKRs, right? These are things that we've all established and agreed upon. Now you or this person is coming to me with this other project that doesn't align to any of these goals that we've set up, right? And so I'm happy to do it. I want to do it. I want to be there for people. I want to be the yes person. But are you okay with me sacrificing this for that or this for that? And if the answer is no, then like, I'm sorry, the answer is no, we can't work on this. And, I think that comes with time and that comes with like maturity too, of like, being able to say no to someone on a VP level is kind of hard. But I think if you like center around something and you've really got a strong hold on their vision, the overall company goals, and then, your personal ones that we've set up and established, then, you should feel empowered to be able to say like, I'm flagging this for everyone. My bandwidth is this. And if I add this in, we might sacrifice something else. And is that okay with you to sacrifice that? Sometimes it is okay. Sometimes priorities have completely shifted and we need to rewrite our
Yeah,
OKRs.
and that's fair. That
Fair
happens.
enough. Let's do it. Like, I'm happy to do it.
Circling back, just something that I want to flag. We don't know if there are newbies listening. OKRs. We need to define the acronyms for the people. For me, I'm thinking objectives and key results, but I don't know if that's like a real thing for you. Okay.
Objectives and key results, right?
Okay. Cool.
So, and everyone kind of does their differently. Like every company has like a little flair on how they write them or how they
or like
present
KPIs,
them.
or it's like key performance indicators, or yeah.
Yes, and you can have both. You can have OKRs and you can have KPIs, right? But I guess I would say like OKRs for us is like more personal or team oriented, right?
Okay.
Leading into overall company kind of goals, and they have the company OKRs. The KPIs, I would say, are just like more metrics we're just trying to hit.
Yeah,
we've kind of set up, but they should all align, right? Everything
it
should
should
be
all
aligning
relate
to
to each
each
other
other,
in some
right?
way. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
As you might get super granular with the KPIs, they should all build kind of into those overall ones. So and you can do that in so many different ways. You can literally Google it for the newbies out there. You could just Google it. And if you're trying to set up something, if you have a small marketing org and you're trying to set up something, I think you can just find a format that you like for now. And then, we've changed ours so many times. So like, it's freedom to experiment with stuff like that. So yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. Now I'm like writing it down. I'm like, I'm gonna make a video because we have some really like great like I think within our company anyway, we have some like really great KPIs and some really great objective building. So we have like KPIs for each individual, but then we have like company KPIs that their KPIs fall back to, but then their monthly like their monthly objectives actually have to lead to their KPIs. Like how is this thing that you're doing going to affect this? So it's interesting that you said, at least that's how I build it out. And I find that it's been really impactful, especially as a, you know, growing business. Like we, you know, we're not a corporation, but we work with a lot of corporations. So we have to kind of be able to like work in the world, but still be able to function outside of it. So
No, but I think it's good you're looking at it that way because even though you're not some giant corporation, you're taking the efficiency and the processes that this company probably spent a long time trying to figure out, like we all do, and saying, you know what, I'm going to skip that process and I'm going to go, okay, they have the answer already. Let me kind of just do what they're
oh my
doing.
gosh.
Yeah.
I am a fan. I am a fan of, and I think I'm a fan of that kind of like, I'm going to call it shortcut because I don't see why I should sit here and fumble when there's someone else already doing it successfully. So I'm a big fan of like mentors and like, you know, what's the thing called, peer groups, and like having transparent conversations to like learn from people, which I really wish I applied that more to my personal life because, you know, my dating life's not that great. Sometimes I'm just like, if I would just listen to my therapist, I would have left.
Right. Oh God.
Forever.
Yeah. Oh, my therapist.
Anyway, you know, as I completely deviate, but no, I think it's really important to be able to like learn from each other, and I hope half the time that when people listen to this podcast, that's exactly what they're doing, is like learning from people's stories and people's experiences, their mistakes and their successes, and trying to find a way to apply it to themselves and like how to be more efficient and successful within the events industry. I mean, God knows that's what I do. Half the time, like I'm talking to y'all, I write little notes down. I know people are like, what is she doing? Because she's like looking down. I'm like writing notes. I'm like, I heard something that's important. I need to remember that. I'm gonna write that down. So thank you.
Mentors are huge for me. Mentors, I would not be where I am today if I didn't have like some just really amazing humans that I've worked for who like I would consider them like better teachers than I've ever had like growing up or anything. They're just willing to like sit down and teach you. Like that should not be like undervalued in any way. Like that's just huge and can help you like advance so much. And so yeah, super thankful for those people that have been like, you know, shaping me over time. So
I mean, as you're saying that, this is like totally out of left field. But there is a clear disparity in a lot of professional industries when it comes to like diversity, equity, inclusion, that kind of thing, where you start to realize that like all the voices sound the same because they have the same cultural background and experiences, and they walk through life kind of the same. And I feel like people being willing to like mentor someone else who might not necessarily look just like them to embrace an industry and be successful in it, I think it would really help to change the scheme of what professional is in the long term. But what, like in your experience, how can event marketers foster a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion when planning and executing events, but also within the professional staffing side of it as well?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things that you as an event marketer or whoever you have control over is your program, right? And who you staff it with. So I'm thinking a big one for us that we think about a lot is our speakers. So we put on a big summit every year annually. You know, and we already have planned all the way up to 2024, but in 2022 we had 550 attendees. But the speakers, like, you can very easily show what you represent by who's speaking, right? Like, and unfortunately, and especially in our industry, you know, maybe it is a little bit of a challenge to like go out of your way to like make that happen. It's not as easy, unfortunately, as it should be to find necessarily a diverse speaking group on specific topics, but it exists, you know. And so going out there and going out of your way to make that speaker lineup more diverse and more equal is a big thing you have control over. And there's actually one of our partners who they actually have a rule now, which is amazing, an amazing rule, which is on any session they do, there has to be one person of color or one woman, no matter what. So on any panel, any speaking session, any webinar, so we've partnered with them and we've had to say, okay, you know, we normally would have this person speak, but in order to meet their diversity guidelines, we have to find someone else. And so
I think that kind of policy really pushes event professionals to like just do better. Do better, and right? Think outside of like their comfort zone.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And it's put us in a position where we really had to kind of be like, all right, what are we going to do? Right. Like, so we got to figure it out. And it's good for us. It's good for us because then we know we can go back to this person again and again, and they're going to do a great job. And it's, you know, it's just, it's unfortunate we have to think like that. But if you really want to make change, you have to be things. The other thing about it, like, be willing to call it out. Like, we as event planners, like, don't be afraid to go to your boss and go, hey, I've been thinking about this. All of our speakers are just this one type. And that that's not great. That's not a great look, you know. Don't be afraid to flag those things. It's like some of that fear, I think, holds us back from really saying what we are thinking. And, you know, as someone who's mixed and all those kind of things, like I want to be able to have that confidence in myself and also like in what is right, and say, hey, like, you need to take a look at this and do a gut check on it. And my boss is normally and is always on board for that type of gut check and is thankful that it gets flagged. So
yeah. It's funny because Megan Henshaw at Google talks about it in her episode too, about I think she calls it a man show. It's like an all man panel. I can't remember the term exactly. And I almost
maybe
I almost died. I was like, oh well, this is nice. I mean, I think sometimes big tech gets like a lot of slack too for like how they and I say slack in a way where I'm like, you know, sometimes it's good because it pushes them to like make policies like the ones they did. But for like leading trends and impacting and influencing how a specific industry moves and what does or does not become status quo. So it's really nice to hear when people are trying to implement those kinds of things to make sure that everybody's a part of the conversation and that opinions aren't one-sided, regardless of what the industry is. So that's nice.
Right, exactly. And I think if more people did things like that and were even just a little bit more conscious of it, it would be, again, you know, you're not, you know, on what we run into as a panel of all white men. I mean, that's just really and it's just not a good look overall. And you as a marketer should be thinking about, you know, does this represent my company? And like, because any marketer on any team, does this represent my company? And, you know, if so, like, do we need to think about that on a deeper level, you know? And so
as you said that, can I tell you a big pet peeve? And I feel like you might understand me as a fellow curly hair person. Big pet peeve for me is seeing promotional material go out for panels and the person with the big curly hair, their hair gets cut out like a box, but the person with like, you know, straight flowing long hair, like looks gorgeous and like really kept. And I'm just like, can someone please talk to the graphic designers about this? This is you know, Photoshop has come a very long way. Like there's a lot of evolution. I mean, we were making sure that when, you know, we were taking out like, you know, hair way back when, before the technology would advance, like we were going in there and getting into crevices, and now the technology has like way surpassed that to where you can do it with like a simple click, and we're still coming out here cutting people's hair out with boxes because we're not accustomed to having culturally diverse people on our panels. Let's not do this. I don't know why that's like something to like
what is one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone's like head is cut off or like anything like that on the design. I'm like, guys, like, I love you guys. Come on. Can you Can you help me out with this one here? Like, I shouldn't be the one saying it.
Well, and I again, a lot of that is just like lack of cultural exposure, right? Like,
oh, it's okay to just cut this off here.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
it's not. That's a part of them, right? Like, it's just like cutting someone's head off, right?
Like if my hair is up like this, they'll just
no bun. No, not right.
Get weird
not right.
as I completely destroy whatever it is that I looked like before I came on this call. Well, okay. So I think we've had a pretty riveting conversation. But before I let you go, what is one event you think that all event professionals should attend at least once?
This is going to make me sound very biased, but I do think that like coming to a South by Southwest is super important. I'm from Austin, so obviously, again, a little biased. First of all, the weather's always amazing that time of year, so it's always just a great time to be here in Austin.
I can confirm.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you can see so many different types of activations all in a couple of weeks. You know, not just like the way they have it broken up with film and music and tech and stuff like that, but you know, I think there's always a surprise. There's always like some amazing activation, you know, and so I think, you know, if you've never done it before, it is just an amazing kind of different style of event. Like one of the days I walked like 16 miles because I went from the east side of town to the west side of town, to the east side to the west side, and just like kept like going back and forth and just walking everywhere. Yeah.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, 2020, I was doing 10 to 15 miles a day in the morning, but like all at once as exercise. But it sounds like you just like torture. It's cool. It's fine. We're here.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so many amazing shows and bands and free drinks and free food.
You're like, I'm stimulated. I don't care about my feet. This is great. Okay.
No.
By the way, you aren't as biased as you think because you're not the first person to recommend going to South by. So I'm completely here for it, and I think it's a really great recommendation. And on that note, unless you have something additionally amazing that you'd like to share, I would like to tell you thank you so much for coming on, chatting with me, sharing your perspective, sharing your story. And I know this is going to help someone else kind of maneuver their way through their career.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you asking me and having me, and it's been really, really lovely chatting with you, and I can't wait to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Have an awesome day. And that's a wrap for this episode of Eventus 365. We hope you enjoyed listening and learning something new today. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to help event professionals discover us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and sign up for our newsletter for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming events. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, or just want to say hello, you can reach us at info@eventus365.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eventus 365.